Welcome everybody to Svelte Workshop 2022, brought to you by Sunway Tech Club. As always, Sunway Tech Club is here to bridge the gap between tech education, industry, and technopreneurship. And that's our vision, and that's why we're having this workshop today, in order to help you guys as well as, help the community we're trying to build here achieve that vision and achieve that goal. So, how do we achieve this vision, and what exactly do we do? So STC does quite a lot of stuff. If this is your first event with us, do look forward to more things like this in the future. But basically what we do is, we do series of workshops, so sessions dedicated to learning various technologies where you guys get hands-on experience and knowledge, and like practical sessions, which is very similar to what we're doing now with the Svelte 2022 workshop. We also have talks whereby we invite guest speakers, we invite people who are very well known in the field. Like last year, we invited Darren Tan to be one of our speakers to talk about various topics that is currently trending or very relevant in the tech industry to anybody at a very consumable package. And last but not least, I think this is very relevant moving forward once COVID restrictions are starting to ease and we get to see y'all a lot more. We want to do what we did last time, where we have bi-weekly meetups and networking sessions where we all can meet up and have a chat with each other and build a network and build the community. And I think that's something to look forward to over the next year, once apparently April we're gonna move into endemic, so hopefully all's good with that. And one very interesting thing before we truly begin as well is a partnership that STC has with Google Developer Student Club, GDSC. So Sunway Tech Club is partnered with Google Developer Student Club program. What this means is we have a chapter within in Sunway University under Sunway Tech Club of Google developers, and we are a university-based community group for students who are interested in Google developer technologies. So something to look forward from us very soon is the Flutter workshop. We haven't fully announced it yet, but it's definitely in the works, and you can expect to see more and more things from Google Developer Student Club under SDC, where we explore various different Google developer technologies and how you can use it to better prepare yourself for the industry. With that being said, once that that housekeeping stuff is done, welcome to our workshop. My name is Benjamin Uy. I am your host for today. And joining us, who, if you've been following us for quite some time in SDC, you've definitely seen his face before. Our speaker for the Svelte Workshop series is Rain Chai. He's amazing, and you will guys see that over the next 2 days. You can follow him on his LinkedIn to keep up to date with what he's doing as well. But basically, Rain is a very established member of STC for many years and has done many workshops, and all of them which are like amazing, and a lot of people love your speeches, and I think it's very evident with like the feedback we've gotten from a lot of people. But without further ado, Rain is our speaker, and let's get started. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and Rain, you can take it away.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Benjamin, for my introduction. I'll take over from now. Let me prepare my contents. Okay. Without further ado, let's get started, right? So before I get started into Svelte itself, I'd like to talk about why are we doing this, right? Specifically, why are we learning Svelte itself? So why framework? So why are we using a framework? What is the problem that the framework is trying to do? In Svelte, there is a core philosophy that they're trying to tackle, which is the maintainability of sorry, let me switch on my slide. The maintainability of a code base. So what the framework is trying to solve here, right, is that when your project grows larger and larger, it's harder and harder to maintain your code convention. So for example, if you're just writing like a single page HTML code, you can write it in the HTML code, right, from scratch, start to end. You can have like one single page of HTML code. But for example, when you try to write a website like YouTube, it's almost impossible for you to write everything in a one single HTML code page, right? So this is where framework comes into hand. For example, when we try to click onto different buttons, having different pages, different behavior, different interactions, all these things, right? it's better to have like a general convention for all the developers to follow these strict rules. So within the framework itself, such that in the future, when we want to have a new developer coming into the company or to the project, it's easier for them to get started and directly contribute to the project because we have already established a set of rules of how you should write, a set of tools and set of the utilities functions or set of things that you can use directly. So if you are going for internship soon, or you're directly going for the company already now, it's almost impossible to run away from framework because nowadays almost all the company use framework. So if you don't know what is a framework is, you probably have to look into more into this other than just writing a plain programming language itself, right? So the second factors that the second issue that framework trying to solve is the duplication and or in other words, we have a term in the programming called keep your code dry or don't repeat yourself. There's a typo here. What it means is that, for example, using like a lot of buttons here, right, and lots of components here. So in this workshop, we refer all this set of div or set of a thing as a component. You have a lots of buttons here, all around your pages. For example, if I click on explore, you can see different buttons. If I click on this, you can see different buttons, and if I click on this, you can see different sort of components. So the more you develop on this project, right, you'll find it harder and harder to manage all your components. For example, you have button variation here, number one, and you have button variation here, number two. So if you are not using a framework, right, you probably have to copy this button from this place to another place, and for every pages you have to copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. The larger your project is going, the harder it is for you to maintain. So instead of doing the copy and paste, right, we reference all the buttons in the website into one single file, such that in the future, when you want to use a button, you can just refer and point to this component. So it's a little bit like a instance of a class. You can think of it like that in an OOP way, right? Or in inheritance or in instance of a class. Basically, with using a framework, you can achieve this kind of behavior, removing all the duplication in your code and make a better code base. The third thing we're trying to have is a single source of truth. A single source of truth means, as like what I said just now, right? You have buttons all around your website. And what if I want to change the button color? That means you have to find all the buttons in the website and change them one by one. That's really tedious, right? Imagine you have like 100 pages or like thousands of pages. You have to change one by one. But using a framework, you can compile all these buttons into one single file. And then when you want to change it, right, you only need to change it in that one single file, and it will reflect on all the pages in your website. So that's why we are these are like the three problems that we're trying to solve using a framework now. There are a few of the other programming frameworks, not just Svelte. Svelte is a front-end framework. There are some of the others like Laravel for PHP, which is a backend framework, Django for Python, which is also a backend framework. Nest.js for JavaScript is also a backend framework. So when you're entering your career, right, these are the few tools that you will never run away. I mean, like if you haven't picked up one of the framework, these are probably like some of the frameworks that you can start to pick up. Because if you can pick up Svelte, you can pick up Laravel or Django or Nest.js. When you migrate to another framework, right, it's really easy. It probably take you 2 or 3 weeks to migrate from one framework to another framework. I mean, as in learning wise. So you might be asking, how do I decide? Should I writing it from scratch, ground up, like having the HTML page, like ground up from scratch, or using a framework like Svelte, like React, like Vue? How do I decide, right? The general rule of thumb is if you spend more than an hour writing it from scratch, then use a framework instead. That's the general rule of thumb. Because if you write more than an hour, that means your project is not a super small scale project already. That means by that time you should be considering using a framework for your long-term effect. Yeah. So this is the context that we need to know before we enter Svelte. So again, Svelte is a framework, it's a front-end framework for us to solve these three problems: maintainability, duplication of the code, and keep a single source of truth. So let's get started. Let's jump into Svelte itself without before I talk more about the theory part, right? So I think everyone has already received the sort of a set of things before we start the workshop. But if you haven't, you can follow along. But please make sure you have VS Code and Node.js installed. So the first thing we're gonna do is open a folder. So I'm gonna open it in my desktop, make a new folder called Svelte Workshop. It doesn't matter what you name it. So just gonna open it. So the first thing we're gonna do is to directly click do a quick start. What should we do here, right? Is that we open up the command prompt by if you're using Mac, you can use Command J. If you're using a PC, you can use Control J. Then we're gonna type npx digit. So svelte.js/template, then space dot. So what this does is it will copy the GitHub repository and clone it locally. So so now I'm gonna hit the enter. So now you can see it download the GitHub templates. So what is the digit, right? So actually digit is a tool that the author of Svelte created. So what it does is it will go to github.com/, so we have a svelte.js/template, right? So svelte.js/template. If you hit enter, you will see this GitHub repository. So which has the same file folder and file structure. So what this does is it will clone this repository and put it locally. So you might be thinking, why don't we use git clone, right? Because git clone will have the git repository, the git repository inside. So we don't want the git, right? So so which is why we use a digit to remove the git. But if you don't understand why it is now, don't worry, just follow along the command will be fine. So the next thing we're gonna do is to do npm install. The reason why we do npm install is because this itself is a Node.js program, right? So whenever it comes to Node.js, it has a package.json, which includes our development dependencies and the source dependencies. So we're gonna install all these dependencies, all these libraries by using npm install. So install now, probably take like 10 seconds. Okay, done. Then the next thing we're gonna do is to run this script, npm run dev. So this is already defined in this package.json. So we're gonna run npm run dev. What it does is it will spin up the local host and also the web server. So now if we go to localhost 8080, you will see it spin up a Svelte app. All right, so that's like a very simple thing, but we probably haven't understand like what this all about, right? So I will break it down into smaller pieces now, by explaining all this folder what they mean, right? So node modules are all the libraries that and dependency we have already installed. Public is where we have our bundled JavaScript bundled code. I'm gonna explain to you later on what do I mean by bundled. And there's a scripts, this one can ignore, and we have a SRC. This is particularly important. SRC stands for source, which has all of our source code here. So if you click on it, you will see like a app.svelte and also main.js. So we'll be looking into this app.svelte and collapse. And you can see like this is hello visit or something, right? So I'm gonna change on something. Remove this and say I am Svelte.js app. So now I already set up my web servers and it's listening to my source change. So it's actually a hot reload and a live server. Now if I save it, right, you can see instantly, not really instant, probably like 1 or 2 seconds delay, reflected on our localhost 8080. So again, where do I get this localhost 8080? So the moment that I say npm run dev, it says it prompt me that says my application is at this localhost 8080, this port itself. So now I access and I can see this. Hello world, I'm Svelte app. So now you notice this is like a general Svelte.js template app. We're gonna dive deeper in and I will talk about like script tag and sort of the other tags that we can utilize and stuff. But if you're familiar with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right, Svelte itself, it should be very easy to pick up if you're familiar with HTML and CSS and also JavaScript, because under hood, it uses this as well. It's just that it adds a little bit more feature and making it into a framework itself. So that is the quick start. We install, we clone the repository, we install the dependencies, and we made some little changes. So that's a very quick start. But before I dive deeper into explaining the syntax, into explaining the features, in explaining all the other convention, we need to understand what is Svelte.js itself. So we talked about framework just now, right? So what is Svelte itself? So Svelte.js is a front-end framework. It means that whatever that you are writing it is actually for front-end. So if you're not familiar with what is front-end, what is back-end, I think you guys can probably request SCC for another session about it. But for now, let's focus on this Svelte.js. So Svelte is a front-end compiler, and it's also a client-side rendering framework. What it means is, Svelte, it will compile your source code into a bundled JavaScript. So now this is the time where we look into this public folder. Public folder is where we have our bundled JavaScript and all of our other stuff. Now I click on this index.html, right? You can see it's actually empty. So our web server, the server that we spin up just now, is actually serving from this public folder. So to prove it to you, okay, probably don't have to prove it to you, but the public folder is where all of our static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript file live. So if you're creating a HTML page, you will have the folder and then you have your index.html, right? That's the general convention. But same here, we have our folder and our index.html. So whatever that we written just now, right? For example, I change something like here, and now I want you to look into this log. I save, and you will see it says bundles, bundle whatever that is inside the source into public/build/bundle.js. Okay, so what this does is it will bundle everything, compile everything into one single JavaScript file. So one single JavaScript file that looks like this, which is some alien syntax. You probably don't. I also don't know what this is all about. But now if you look at this index.html, right, you can see there's a script tag here. It reference to this /build/bundle.js, which is this. So what this does is, right, the moment that a visitor receives your page, this is the HTML they will get. So instead of the typical HTML that you've written down, I have my h1 tag, I have my p tag, I have my sort of the other tags. Instead of that, right, the thing that the receiver will get is just this HTML file. But the HTML file will fetch the JavaScript from this file. All right, it will get the JavaScript file from here. And after they get the JavaScript file, right, the browser will execute the JavaScript and inject the HTML code in the runtime. What it means is that it will get all this bundle.js, and it will execute, and it will say, okay, now I'm done already. I will insert the HTML code directly into my body tag. So to prove it to you, I have this app.svelte, right? So I'm Svelte.js something. So let's copy this and find it here. So you can see in the bundle.js, there's this function create. What this is, right, is that you will create a p tag. So you can see p.text content. P.text content is a DOM kind of a way of writing. P.text content equals to I have spelled something, something, something. And then it only add it to the body tag. So it get the JavaScript file, execute it, and then inject the HTML code directly to the body tag. So this is what we mean by a compiler, and also a client-side rendering framework. Client-side rendering framework means the client, which is us, the visitor, will get the JavaScript file and rendering it and inject it by themselves. So comparatively, there is a server-side rendering, which is the typical one that you have your index.html with all your HTML code written freehand, hard-coded, and send it to the user. So that's what we call a server-side rendering. It means whatever that the user should see is already ready the moment that they receive the file. So client-side rendering means the moment they receive the file, it's not yet ready. They have to run the JavaScript file, inject the HTML code by themselves. Comparatively, server-side is the server already did everything for them and they just need to render it. Okay, so there's a difference between client-side rendering and the server-side rendering. So if so to talk about it deeper, right? Probably don't have to go that deep. YouTube.com is a client-side rendering framework. The benefit that it provides is that it can provide you like an app-like behavior. So if you're using a typical HTML page, right? If you click on this, you will see like the whole page refresh, loading the HTML page and all these things. But client-side rendering has the benefits that all the possibility of the pages, user, the profile page, the video page, the list, this home page, everything is already compiled into JavaScript. So they no longer need to fetch it from the server anymore because they can run it inside their browser itself. So the server has a lesser load because the client only need to fetch once and for all. So it's like download an app directly on your website, on your browser. So server side is like I send you one page, one by one. So when you click this, you will see like it reload. But client-side rendering means I fetch everything. You can imagine it for now. In reality, maybe not that case, but client-side rendering is you fetch everything at once and you store locally. So you probably have you will have like the app-like behavior because you essentially have all the pages locally already. You don't need to fetch it from server anymore. So that's what we mean by client-side and server-side. Okay, so the goal of this workshop is to create a simple to-do list like this, where you can enter and create a new task, and you can check and uncheck. So you can't uncheck. You can only check it off, and it will disappear after 1 second. So that's a goal for today. But we will be writing this, of course, in Svelte.js context. So this should be enough for you to get started and go on to the next Svelte.js phase. So in this workshop, I'll be covering 5 topics, which is the syntax of Svelte.js. How do you manage your data in Svelte.js? Logic blocks, if else, how do you write it in a Svelte.js? Events means how do you handle the DOM events like on click, on change, on something. So those are like the DOM events that how do you handle it in Svelte? And also lastly, the input bindings. So how do you bind the value from the input tag to your data? So I'll show it to you later. So this will be the 5 topics that we'll be covering today. I'll put it up front first. All the content here is actually coming from the official website. If you want to look into deeper, right, I would strongly recommend you to go to the official website and click on this tutorial. It's one of the best tutorial I've ever seen from so many frameworks. It is one of the best because it directly gives you like a hands-on way that you can just edit it on live, right? So it has all the contents here. If you're already familiar with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you are familiar with React and all this stuff, right? going through everything here probably only take you like 30 to an hour. So 30 minutes or an hour. So yeah, if you are really want to go deep into Svelte, this is a place to go. Okay, let's get started on the syntax. So in syntax, in this topic, I'll be covering 5 things. Some of the basics, some syntax basics, and how we can declare the data. And then, so yeah, let's get started. Now, I want you to go to the quick start app that you had just now. I want you to be ready. So to have everything set up here, and I want you to remove everything. All right, I want you to remove everything. So now you save it, you'll see empty page here. Okay. So if you have any questions, do bring it into the chat. I will check it out from time to time just to see if you guys have any questions. So after you clear everything, right? Svelte, the way that you write Svelte is very much like how you will be writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you want to have like a #1 tag, you just say #1 tag. Say title. So save, you'll see like the title show as how you would expect. And if you say a p tag like this, it will show as how you expect it to show. So compared with React, right? Svelte has way lesser boilerplate that have to write. There is no functional component, there is no class-based component, there is no hook, there is no nothing. But they are like much more synthetic sugar and a more intuitive syntax as how you will write HTML code. So you'll be writing #1 tag and p tag, and if you want to style your #1 tag, right, you can just put a style tag as how you expect. So #1 tag color blue, right? So if you just look at this, right, what you expect it to render is the title will change to blue color, right? So the moment you save, you see it change to blue. You type p tag color red, they can do like that. So if you put like a class, let's say my title, then I can put like here, and instead of blue, I probably want to make it become red as well. So save, you'll see as it is, right, as how you expect it to be done. And lastly, you have like the script tag. So if I say alert, script tag, inside script tag is all JavaScript alert. I am just save, and you expect it to work as it is. So Svelte has the moment why the reason why Svelte.js is so famous is because of the developer experience that it has. Everything is so intuitive compared with React, compared with Vue, probably not Vue, React, compared with some of the other frameworks. Svelte.js offers one of the best way of writing your code. So if you're already familiar, this is the way to go. So that's the basics for the syntax. The basics is equals to HTML. But the next thing we're gonna do a little bit deeper, we'll show you Svelte itself. How can we declare a data? Okay, so I will say remove all this also. Now I want to declare #1 tag. I want to say hello, then I want to put my name here. My name here. So if I save, you can say hello, my name, but I want to have like binding it to my variable. So what I can do is that I can declare a script tag. I can say my name is equals to rain. Then, so now if you just save it, right, nothing will happen. Just like your typical vanilla JavaScript, if you just declare a variable, it will not reflect to the DOM. If you want to do it, you probably have to do like a document, query selector, tilde selector, and then you have like a #1 tag text content, right? So this is how you'll be doing if you are writing JavaScript. But Svelte, being a framework, it offers a very nice way of writing. Instead of you declare the data already here, then you can reference it. The keyword is reference. Reference it by using a curly braces. A curly braces, then put in your variable name, just name. So now if you save it, you can say hello rain check. So if you change your data here, your string, then you can see it's being updated accordingly. So just like your typical JavaScript, but it adds a layer of synthetic sugar that you can access directly. So why this is possible, right? Is because Svelte, well, actually Svelte is not JavaScript. Svelte, which is quoted by the original, which is quoted by the author, Svelte is a language, it's a compiler. So because it is a compiler, you see this file, and then you say, okay, so there's this pattern, curly braces, then there is this referencing to the variable. Then okay, so in the runtime, it will automatically replace this name like this. So it will do it because it's a compiler. Because it's a compiler and because it's a language. So it can offer this layer of syntactic sugar. Okay, so that's how we can declare data and bind it to our JavaScript. So you can already start seeing it being powerful. And we can move on to the next one, which is adding the data to HTML attribute itself. So I will show you like an example like this. So I have this image tag, and I want to show like an image. And I will say like this. You guys can put any image you want. So I just have the resources that I prepared before. So okay, let me collapse this. So if I save it now, you can see there's an image being rendered out. There's no image being rendered out. How come? Hey, what is this? Oh, image. Oh, not without the S. Okay, like this. Yeah, correct. So just as how you expect, right? The image tag will do it as image tag, but we'll do something a little bit more fancy. We want to make this string become a variable, right? So let image URL is equals to this. So to reference this variable, we always use a curly braces and we put it like this. Yeah. So now you can see it still works because when the compiler sees this or the browser sees this, it will replace this to this string. But we can do a little bit more fancy. I can say random image like this, and I can say I want to have this image, right? So, so copy image link, copy image address. Okay, it's okay. So what I want to do is that after 1 second, I want to change this image to another image. I can accomplish this by using a set timeout. So after 1 second, I want the image URL is equals to this. All right, save. I can see 1 second, it will update to this. So this is how we can have the data and interaction with the HTML code being very dynamic, right? Because you no longer need to use the document.query selector, to update the text content or update the attributes. If you were to write it in vanilla JavaScript, you probably have to do like a document.query selector. Then you have your image tag. Then you have you want to update the source equals to like this. So you're accessing the DOM object very frequently if you're writing vanilla. But having Svelte as a layer, it abstract this out by having it just using a curly braces. So if I save after 1 second, you go to that. So that's how we can add data to HTML attribute. How about styling, right? So actually, I already showed you the style just now, but I will go a little bit deeper in this case. So I probably need to show you the public folder. So now I will style my h1 tag to color equals to red first. So now this is red. So probably remove this. It's a little bit distracting. Color red. So but you might be thinking, the original styling of this tag shouldn't be like this, right? So if you are creating a HTML tag, HTML file from scratch, the default font is sans serif, right? But in this case, it's a little bit different and it has this padding, very weird things. That's because in Svelte, right, we have two kinds of styling. One is a local styling and one is a global styling. A global styling means a global CSS, and a local styling means whatever that you written here, this style will only apply to this component. So for example, if I say a button and want the color of the button to be red, then I say h1 equals to red, then that styling will only apply to the button. The CSS is scoped to the component itself. Then we have like you might be asking, what if I want to change the global, right? So that's when the public global CSS come into handy. So we have the original one and we have the global CSS. So that's the styling of Svelte. Styling in Svelte is global and local. So if you're applying the style tag in the Svelte file itself, that means this style will apply only in this file. All right. So that's the styling. Next up, we have the nesting components. This is where the clear distinct between a framework and a plain HTML method is having the components. All right. So for example, I want to have this thing wrap up and I want to duplicate. I want to have like 10 of them. So original way, I will have it like this, right? I'll have like, in total 20 lines of code. And if I have more, like say, a man dancing, then I will probably have to copy and paste multiple times all around my HTML code and stuff. So this is the one of the problems that I'm trying to solve, right? The duplications and also the single source of truth. But instead of doing this, right, what we can do is that we can create a new file called a man dancing.svelte. Doesn't matter what the file name is. You can probably say like a container or something. But for this sake, I'll just put a man dancing. Name it a name dancing. Then I will cut this, and paste it here. All right. And I'll probably cut everything. Yeah. Okay. Like this. Right. So I cut everything from the app.svelte and paste it right here. So if I save it, you will see it's empty now. Why? Because my app.svelte, which is my entry file. So how do we define this entry file, right? Is that in the main.js, we have this import app from app.svelte. So if you want the entry file to be another file, you can probably say a man dancing from a man dancing.svelte. So that will do as well, just like this. So you see like the entry file is different, but the convention is to have an app.svelte. Okay, so then the app.svelte is empty, which is why it's empty right now. But what we can do is that we can define a script tag and we can import the component, right? So I'll show you the syntax, just like this. So if you're familiar with ES6, this is a syntax for import. Then we can use this as a HTML tag by itself. So what we did just now is that we wrap all the code just now and throw it into one single file and treat this group of elements as a HTML tag. If I save it now, you can see it's being there. So, but here comes really the handy part, is that I can copy and paste it here instead, and we will show multiple places. So for example, you have like a home page that reference this file, this component, and you have like a contact us page that reference this component. Then instead of having this code copy all around the page, right, place, right, you can have a reference to this file or this component, and all the places will just have a single source of truth. So for example, if I want to change the title, I can just change it in one single file. Just change like this, and it will be updated everywhere. So if I change like this, it'll be updated everywhere in my page. So that's the nesting components. You can of course nest infinite amount of components. Like this component can also have like a component that have a component that have a component that have a component. And ultimately your whole app is also a component. And inside your component, you have like many child components. But the good part is that you can separate all these group of elements into different places so that it's easier to maintain later on. So that's the syntax for Svelte. So if you guys have any questions, again, you drop it inside the chat. So the next up we'll be talking about the data managing, right? The data managing inside Svelte itself. So this is let me bring up. Okay, so the data managing inside Svelte itself. Okay. In this data managing, I'll be talking about three things: assigning, statement, and array. So it might not make sense now, but let me show you one by one what it is. Okay, so again, I will remove everything, start over again, and remove this file, save it, and see an empty page, right? So what do we mean by assigning? Let me bring up the example just now, and have a hash1 tag. I have a say like let name is equals to rain chai. Then I have this hello name like this. So if I save, should be seeing this itself. So assigning means what? Assigning means I'm so okay, put it up like that. Whatever that is inside a script tag is a JavaScript, right? So you define a variable where using a let or like a var or like your just a let or var, right? So assigning means you have this equal sign that assign the right hand side to the left hand side. So, but because Svelte itself is not JavaScript, it is a compiler. It is a compiler. What it means is that the moment that he sees this app.svelte, right, it's just a random text for him. It's actually not code. It's not yet a code. It's just a plain text for him. So what he does is that whenever he sees an equal sign, Svelte will know that you're trying to assign the value to the data. Okay, so for example, name is equals to hi, like that. All right, so that's what I mean by assign. So whenever, so Svelte will treat equal sign as assigning, only equal sign as assigning. Means that if you have an array, okay, let me try this. Let history is equals to this. Then you have like a https youtube.com like this. So if you have it like this, right, it will show, let me add a little bit more. Then you have a https google.com like this. All right. So if I save it, you can see like, hello youtube.com like this. So next is if I try to append it, right, just push, and I can say, new link like this, new link like this. And wait, why is this being updated? Oh, okay. Wait, why is this? Oh, okay. Because it's a script. It's inside the script tag. It's okay. Okay, let me try this out. So if, for example, yeah, I have this button, right? I have this button that say click me, right? And I have this if you are familiar with HTML, then you have this on click, but click, right? Then you can have like referencing it to a function like this, and stuff. Probably not a good idea. Okay, I'll click, then do like this. Then I can say which is a function. Then I can say history.push like this. So when I click on a button, nothing happened, right? Although the history has already been pushing with a new array. So that's because Svelte itself doesn't know that you're trying to update this data. All right. So instead of writing this, we should be writing history equals to spreading the history. Then I can say new value. So I can say click me. I can see it's being added now. So remember, this is very important. Svelte will only reassigning it when he see the equal sign. So even though you write the dot push, dot slash dot something, it will not update the data unless he sees an equal sign. All right. So that's what I mean by assigning. Then we have a statement. So statement means a listener. All right. So for example, let me create an example like this. So I have this button again. I say on click, increment. I'll create an encounter, increment the counter. Then I have a script tag that says let counter is equal to 0. And I have this p tag that reference to the counter like this. So now if I click on this counter, nothing will happen because I haven't updated the counter. But what I can do, right, is that I can say on click is equals to something. I haven't created a function here. Let me create a function now. A function increment counter. Doesn't matter what you want to name it. Then I can say counter plus equals to 1 like this. Then I can say increment counter like this. Save it. If I click on the button now, we can see this is being updated, which is what you expect it to be done. So what this is, right, is that when I click the button, it will call this function, which this function will update the counter value. So the moment that they update the counter value, it will tell the browser that, hey, I have updated the counter value. Can you please find all places that reference to this variable and update them accordingly? So which they have a few places, right, which is here. And if I copy and paste multiple times, then we have like 4 places that reference to this variable. So if I click, you can see this is being updated. All right. So now what if I want to do a little bit more fancy? I want to say, I want to have another p tag that that shows the double of the counter, right? So I say the double is equal to 0. So one of the ways that we can do it is that we can say double like this, double, and double is equals to counter times 2, right? So now if I save, if I click on this, you can see the below here is a counter times 2. But this is bad, right? Because we have one function that does 2 things at the same time. We don't want that, right? So instead of having this, in Svelte, we have another way of writing, which is called a statement. A statement is written like this. So you have a $ and double colon, then you have curly braces. So then you can put like this, just like that. So what this will do, right, is that this will register under the Svelte.js or the browser itself that says, hey, you updated this value already, right? If you ever see this variable being updated, call this function again. Run this function again. So you can theoretically put many statements because because this will be registered under the browser, and the browser will say, okay, now I updated my counter, and when the counter is being updated, I will tell all places that is referencing to this variable to be updated as well. So which we have 1 places and we have the 2nd places. So this is one of the way that we can split out the set of the responsibility of different operations. So you can put like a register. You can register an event. You can register a listener like this. They will listen to this. So if I save it here, instead of probably times 2, I want times 3. So save it here. You can see this is being updated accordingly as well. So this will be useful when you want some of the data to be reactive, to listen to some of the variables from here that you declare. This will be very useful later. All right. And lastly, which is the array, which I already showed you just now, the history.push. But nevertheless, I will show you again. So let history is equal to this, and we're gonna say push to history. So this will be push to history, and I'll register this function. And I will say history dot. If I say if history dot push, right, this will not work because okay, let me show you. If I click on this like this, it will not work because Svelte doesn't see any equal sign here. So if it doesn't see an equal sign, it doesn't know he needs to update all the places that reference to this variable. So instead of writing it like this, right, we need to write like this. History equal, not history new value, like this. So now when I click on this, right, Svelte see all there's an equal sign. So I need to update every places that is referencing to this variable. Okay, So this will make more sense in the next sessions when I talk about life cycle, when I talk about state, under hood how Svelte manage the state. But yeah, just remember for now, equal signs means reassigning it and update all the places that reference to this. So the next thing, we'll be talking about logic blocks in Svelte. Logic blocks is the if, else, each block, which is a for loops, and a key each block, which is quite complicated, but I'll explain it through as well. So let's go through with the if block, right? Let's try to create like a login and logout behavior. So now we have a button that says login, and we have a button that says log out, like this. So now we have this button login and log out. And then I want to have like a script tag that says is login. It's equals to false by default. And then now I want to have a p tag that reference to this variable. So now if I save, you can see the current value is equals to false. So let me create two more functions that says login, which is login is equal to true. Another one which is function logout, the is login is equal to false. Then I will say the on click. So I'll explain through what is an on, then a colon. So because in a typical HTML way, we probably will write like an on click like this. But now in Svelte, we'll add like an extra colon just like this. So login, what this is called, and logout like this. So now if I refresh login, it will change it to true. Logout, it will change it to false. All right. So what if I want something like this? I want to say when it's logged in, show a certain content. So in a typical context, it will be like if you log into a YouTube, you will see your avatar and you will see some of the other things. If you're not logged in, you will prompt you to log in. So I want to create like that kind of behavior. To achieve that, we will need like an if and else statement. So in Svelte, in Svelte, we have this syntactic sugar, also a curly braces, and start with an if. So then end with an L, with an if also. So you can say if it's logged in, then I now say the user is logged in, just like this. So this will only be rendered when this is logged in is true. So you can say is equals to true or what. So now if I save and I click on this, you can see this is being rendered out only when its login is true. So if I click on logout, you will see it disappeared, just like that. So I can probably do like this. If it's not login, then I can say is log out. Say please log in. Okay, so now if it's false, you will say the user is logged out, please log in. And if I click on this, you can see the content switches up. So that is a if statement, but for cases like this, we don't usually have two if statement, right? Even in a usual programming statement, we'll have like an else. So the way that you can write else is using curly braces as well. Then double colon else. So if it's logged in, then display this, else display that. So if else, just like that. So that's a if and else, which is a logic blocks. There are a few of the other logic blocks like this as well. That only exist in Svelte. Means that if you write this in a typical HTML code, right, this will not work because it's a syntax that Svelte provides. So there will be an each block. So an each block is like this. Let me create a script tag. Let's say history is equals to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, like that. So an each tag means that I want to look through each item in the list and display something. All right. So in the case of a YouTube, I want to say, for each YouTube, for each video, render this card. All right. So we can do that using an each statement, each block. So same, we'll start with each. So the syntax is each history for each history as item. Okay, you need to close it as well. So the S here will the S here will say that each history as item. So you can say any variable name will do just for clarity. I put item. Then I will render it out. Item is like this. Then you can reference it, right? So it's the same way as how you will write a typical for loops. So for each history as something, then you can reference it. So if I save it now, it will say for each of the item in the list, render this out. So if I now add a little bit more, it will look through accordingly. Okay. So that is each block. There is one more, there is a key each block. This is one of the most complicated one. And I think I will probably cover it later on, or else currently it won't be making sense now, because this is a problem that we will face later when we're trying to create the final to-do app. Okay, so I'll skip it for now. Okay, so we cover the syntax of Svelte.js, and we cover how you can manage data, and we covered the logic blocks, which is if, else, each block. And the next thing I want to cover is the events. The events inside the Svelte. So events means the DOM, the DOM events, which is what you have seen just now. We have a button and we have an on directive, right? So you can see when I type this, it already prompted me there are quite a few of the other DOM events I can access, like on mouse move, on click, on something like that. So it's actually a Svelte syntax. So if you go to svelte.dev, right, click on docs, scroll down, you'll see there's this on a component directive, which we have an on ; event name. So this on, right, will be catching the event that is dispatched by DOM. So for example, one of the event is like on click, on mouse move, on mouse enter, on something, right? So that is for us to catch the events. All right. So typical one, let's put like a function that says function on button click. Then I want to alert the user and click like this. So on click, then I can say on button click. Then I will say click me. All right. There are quite a few of the other directive. So one of them is on click. So when you click, you'll call this function. Pretty straightforward. But I can do something a different way, right? And say on mouse in or mouse enter, sorry. Then I can create a function as well. Or I can reuse the same function like this. So now when my mouse hover or mouse entering it, right, DOM will dispatch an event to Svelte, and Svelte will say, okay, you tell me that this component has a mouse enter, so I'm gonna call the on button click. So now if I hover on it, say I'm click, not really clear on hover. So now mouse enter, so it's an event. So that's how you can handle. The on : can be used for others. So because you might be wondering, like, why do we need this extra thing, right? Why couldn't we just use the HTML on click? Because we already have it like this. So reason being is that the on directly doesn't only catch the DOM events, it also catch some of the custom events that you can dispatch. So what it means, right, is that in Svelte, we can dispatch our own event. So we have an on click, right? Button has an on click. These are these are like the default events that the DOM provide. You have on click, you have on mouse in, on mouse enter. You have all these default events. But sometimes we want to have like a default behavior, like for example on mouse, I don't know, like spinning a circle or something. You can define all these custom behavior with like some custom functions using the on directive. But I won't be covering the dispatching custom event now. But if you're interested, you can go to these tutorials again. Then you have this events. Under event, you have DOM events and you have component events. So this is where we have a custom event dispatcher. So for example, I can just show you this example. So in the official example, it has two files. One is the app.svelte, which is our entry file, and it has its own component file, which is inner.svelte. So what this is, right, is that when the button is clicked, when this button is clicked, it will call this function, which dispatch and custom event to the parent. So in the parent, I can just catch it using the on directive. This will be particularly useful when you are developing like a event-driven kind of components. But for now, it's a little bit advanced, so I'll be covering in this session. Okay. So then we have we won't cover in the dispatch. Okay. So that is the event, how you can manage using the on directive. And next up, we have the final one, which is the input bindings, right? The input bindings. So what this is, right, is that sometimes we have like a input tag. Sometimes we have like an input tag. So let me put some placeholder and say I am input tag, like this. So if I refresh, you can see like this. We have an input tag, right? But what if I want to do something like this? I want to say #1 and say hello, but instead of hard coding the range height in this case, I want to reference it to whatever I type inside the input. All right. So I want to get the username from the input tag, which is quite typical, right? So in Svelte, because this is so commonly used, in Svelte it's already a syntactic sugar. So I can declare the data, let name is equal to something. So which is empty for now. So I can say hello name. So currently the name is empty, so it will not show anything. But I can say range height like this. But we don't want to hard code it, right? Because no, my name is definitely different than yours. I want to reference it from the input tag. How can we get it, right? We can get it by using like this. There is another directive. Just now we have like on directive, right? There's another directive called bind. So a bind means that okay, before I talk about bind, right? Let's do like this. So inside input, there is a attribute called value. So if I reference the value to name like this, you can see the default value is equal to range, right? If I say like this, the default value is like this. But if I type anything longer than that, it will not update this, right? So that's because the value inside the input tag has changed. Again, the value inside the input tag has changed, but Svelte doesn't know that he needs to update this value. All right, it doesn't know that he needs to update this value. So remember just now what I said, right? There is a assigning, means that Svelte will only update every places that reference this variable when he sees an equal sign. All right, for example, like name is equal to something like Marcus. Then it will change it, right? When you see the equal sign. But in this case, in the input tag, we don't have an equal sign. Well, so instead of having the equal sign, we can use the bind directive, which what it means that if the input tag value change, then update the variable as well. All right. So now if I type like this, you can see it instantly updated as well. So internally, the internal logic is on input text change, update the value. So this is just a syntactic sugar. You don't need to, you don't actually like need to use it. It's just for you, for ease of convenience. You can of course use it on change, right? A typical, you have like on change for input tag when you do that. For example, I can do like this. I can say function change name. So I can say value like that. Or like it's an E, right? Forgot what's inside already. So name is equals to E like that. So on change, on the value change, I update the name. Not sure if it's still the same. Oh, yeah. Change. What's inside this? Change, which is what is inside E already? Yeah, just DOM event, right? So if I tap on something, yeah, event, then I have a event dot target, event dot target dot what dot text dot value. Okay, dot value, just like that. So I'll be doing a typical way, right? So I can do like this, can do like this. Of course, you can do like that. You can write your own function and do it like that, but you have an extra code. So for the convenience sake, we'll be just using the bind directive. But the logic is the same. The logic is the same. Value equals to name, just like that. If I refresh, I can do like that. All right. So that's for the text input binding. We also have a checkbox input binding, right? So for example, I have another input, which is a checkbox. Then a checkbox has no value, right? There's only one check or not. So if I save it now, you can see check or not check. But we can also bind this to our variable. So I say is check. Is check is equals to false. By default, I don't want to check it. So if I do it like this, okay, let me print it out also. Check box is check. So you can see the default is false. But even if I do like this, it will not update this one. So we can do the same. We can bind the value. Or if you want to go hardcore, you can say on change. Then you just now, right, you create a custom function and then you e.target.check. You update the value by yourself. But for convenience sake, we can just use the bind. It's the same logic. So now if I check like this, you can see the data is being updated accordingly. All right. So that's for the checkbox input binding. And basically, we talk about these 5 topics already. Syntax, how can we manage the data? How can we manage, how do we write the if else each block? How do we handle the DOM events? And how can we bind the input to our variable? So now if you look at this, right, it's actually not much difference than writing your JavaScript code. It's just that it provides you a little bit more easier way to access to some of the things that you frequently write. For example, this, right, on check, instead of having the on function and writing document query selector, you have this syntactic sugar. So Svelte, at its core, is this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then it wrap it with all this syntactic sugar, but under hood is a component. It's a component, so which is why you can achieve all these features. If you're just writing it in the actual HTML, you cannot achieve all these features because it's not a component. If you're writing in React, right, you have to use something called a JSX, which is also like a not really a JavaScript. So Svelte at itself is just a wrapper to your typical HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It provides you a little bit more features that can help you to manage your component, like just now import, you can export, you can do all these things, right? So this is what Svelte is, right? And last but not least, I want to cover the last thing before we move on to the demo to do. I think this is sort of knowledge I think I haven't added. I forgot to add it to the slides. So now let's create like a component called item.svelte, and I can say hello. So this will only have like a hello name. So I can say let name is equals to rain, like this. So for example, I have like a group of element. I am who like this. So for example, I have this components, and now it's being now it's disappeared already. So but then I want to import from here, and then I can use it as a typical HTML code can use it as a typical HTML tag as it is. But the thing is that if I just look like this, okay, probably this is a little bit confusing. I have markers. Then let me remove this name. Right. So let me remove some of the things so it's not so confusing and distracting. This one also remove like that. It's okay. Okay. So now if I type this, right? So what I want to do is that I want the name here to be updated when I type this. But we cannot, right? Because the data is living inside the component. And we have no way to mutate or change the data inside this component. So that's when we have an idea of props, or you can think of it as a property or like parameters or even attributes, right? Okay. So for us to change the data inside this component, we need to export or expose this data such that whoever referencing this component, right, he can control this data or this variable. All right, I will show you what it means. So item here and export lab name, or in other way of saying is exposing this variable, and then I can access it directly here. So I can say name is equals to range height, like that. All right. So what this will do is that it will update the name variable inside here and reflect it here. So now if I save, I can say this, I can see this being updated. So instead of referencing this, I can just do like this, right? Because I have this name and which is binded to my input tag. So now I can say range height. Okay. So the flow goes like this. The moment that I type something on this input tag, it updates this name variable. Okay. Internally, it update this variable, which Svelte will see, okay, you updated this value already. Let me tell everyone who referenced this value, this variable, to update themselves. So now item is referencing to this value, and hence this will also be updated. All right. So that's how the data flow going on. So we have this idea called props inside Svelte itself for your convenience to control the variable from the parent component. Okay. All right. So that's enough knowledge for us to go on to our last chapter, which is the demo to do app. We have probably around 11 minutes left. Should be enough to accomplish this. Okay, let's remove everything and start over again. So we can start from scratch. So the feature we want to achieve, right, is that I have this input tag and I have this add button. So when I click on the add button, it will add this to-do list and render it out as a list. So when I click on one of the items, it will cross out itself and it will remove himself after 1 second. So let's do that. The first thing we're gonna add is declaring the input tag, and we have a placeholder is equals to enter a to-do task like this. So now we have the input tag and we have a button that say add task. All right. So now these two are together. If I click on this, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. So the next thing I want to do, right, is that I want to try to bind this value. So I have this script tag that says value, current task value is equals to empty, and I want to bind it to the input tag value, just like that. So then maybe what I can do next is to test out whether it works correctly. We can have this referencing. So later on, yeah, you can see this is binded correctly. It's binded correctly. So what I want to do next, right, is that I want to create a variable called to-dos, which is an array. All right. Then later on, I want to also have a function that adds an item to this to-do list. Add item. So this will be used for the function for the buttons. So on click, then call these functions. All right. So whenever this button is being called, I want to add to-dos is equals to spreading out and current task value. All right. So now if I add like this, nothing will happen because I haven't referenced it. But let me reference it here. So now if I click, you can see there are quite a lot of other values as well. But I want to clear out the input after I add task. So what I can do is task value equals to empty. So do like this. Now you can see like the moment I click on this add task, it will clear the input tag as well, and it will add it to my to-do list. Okay, so we're slowly getting there. The next thing we want to do is to have this checkbox and also this item together with the date that is being created. So instead of hard coding the p tag, I want to use the each tag that we learned just now, which is a for loop. So for each to-dos as item, right? So I'm going to close it. Then I can reference the item like this. So I can, when I do task number 1, can add task number 2, can add task number 3, can add. Okay. So that's fair enough, right? So the next thing I want to add is a checkbox, all right? But from now on, we cannot have like a checkbox here because it will be very hard for us to reference the state of it later. So what I will do is that I will create a component called item, to do item not spelled. All right, to do item not spelled, and I will copy this and paste it right here. So now you complain like this variable is not defined. So let's define it. Let item equal, the default value is equals to empty. But we want to let the parents to control it, right? But let me show you what it means. So let us import the to-do item from current directory. Then I want to use it as my typical HTML tag. And I save it. Let's say 1 like this. So now if I add, right, you can see it's like 1, 1, and also the checkbox are very ugly. Yeah. But we don't want that, right? We want like every time when I add something like this data, it will be passed down to this. I'm going to control this thing, right? So I can export the item or expose the variable so that I can control it here. I can say the item is equals to item, or because item is equals to item is a little bit duplicated. So Svelte has this very nice way of writing a shorthand that say if both variables are the same name, right, you can just remove it like that. So internally, Svelte will know that you're trying to write like this, but no, to make it shorter, you can do like this as well. I can say task number 1, can have task number 2, like this. But these are not in the same line, right? So what I can do is I can style it here, add a style tag, and I can add a div tag, and do like this. Then I can say maybe I can give a class name, right? Let's say to do item. Then I can style it here. So I'm going to give a display to be flex. It's to become a flex box, such that it's in one line. Okay, but it's not aligned. So what I can do is align items equals to center. So add. Okay. So now if we check, nothing will happen. It's not going to cross it out. It's not going to check it or not. So what we can do is that we can bind the check value as well. So let is check is equals to false. And I want to bind this value, bind this check to our is check variable. Okay. So if I do like this, nothing will happen still. Nothing will happen still like that. But we can start to have our if statement, if block. So if it's checked, then we have in the HTML we have a del tag which will cross out the item. So then we have like else we want to show the typical one. Okay, So if it's checked, then you will cross it out. If it's checked, it will render this. Else, it will render this. So now we will achieve this feature. So we can check, uncheck, check, uncheck, check, uncheck, check, uncheck, check, uncheck, check, uncheck. All right. So that's how you can do it. The next thing we want to do is to remove this item from the list after 1 second. But let's try to remove it for now, right? So to do this, what we can do is that we can sort of passing it down the function. So for example, function remove item, so which accept like a variable, which is so-called maybe called the title like this. So this is a function, and what we can do, right, is that we can export let on check like this. So which is a function. By default, it's an empty function. So what we can do is that we can use the statement that we teach just now, which is a $, double colon. We state that whatever that is inside this block, right, whatever all the variables that is referenced inside this block, if it's changed, then call this block of code again. So I can say if it's checked, right, then I can call this function. If it's checked, then I can call this function. To prove it to you, I can say, no, I am checked. So now if I add any, and I click on it, you can see I'm checked like that. So reason being is like when the check variable is updated, it will update here and also here, which will trigger this function to be called. Okay. So that's now we have ensured the interactivity already. So let's move on to the functions. So remove item, what we can do is we can use a to-do stop. We want to find the index of these items, or find index of this item. So for each of the to-dos, we'll say if to-do is equals to title, just like that. Then we can say, the item index equals to this, right? Item index equals to this. Then we can say, we want to do's dot splice, sorry, let me check out I forgot what is it already. 1 second. Okay, so to do dot splice, which is the splice means like it will remove the item from the list, starting from this item index, counting 1. All right, but if I just do like this, nothing will happen because I haven't bind it. So I will say on check, then call this function. All right, on check, then call this function. But this function, once we have a title parameter, right? So all we can do is remove item dot bind this. Then we have the item, just like that. So this, and this. Now if I click on this, nothing will happen. So because I haven't do the assign, right? So remember, like in Svelte, if the Svelte doesn't see assign, then it won't update the value. So we can do a to-dos equals to to-dos. It's very stupid, like to write like this, to-dos equals to-dos, but Svelte will only recognize it when he see this. So now if I add, I click on this, you will see like it's removed, but it's not removed correctly. Right? It's not removed correctly. It's somehow removing everything after. So if I do like this, it's removing, but it's not removing everything. So what we can do, right? This is where the key each block comes into hand. So I will explain to these people in the next session because it involves the component lifecycle. But for now, if you ever encounter this, right, just remember that it's because Svelte doesn't know that when you're trying to delete the item, it doesn't know which component you are referring to. It doesn't know which component you are referring to. So you have to help Svelte to differentiate each item by giving it an ID. So to do that, very simple. You can just use a bracket and reference the ID here. So you might not understand what this means right now, but just bear in mind when you see this, it means that you're giving an ID for Svelte to identify all of the components that is living on the page. So now if I add this, and I click on this, it's being deleted correctly. So task 1, task 2, task 3. If I click on this remove it correctly. Then lastly, we can just do like a set timeout, right? Because we want to delete it after 1 second. So set timeout, then we'll do like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Click on this, 1 second, disappear. All right. So that's about it. And if you were to write all these things into JavaScript, right? Into a vanilla JavaScript, you can imagine you have like at least 70 to 80 lines of code. But with the help of a framework, it's as simple as writing it like this, because a framework will offer you a way, a convention, or all these helpers, syntax, all these things that you can significantly reduce down the code that you have to manage. Yeah, so that's what Svelte can accomplish. So far, this is the end of the workshops. We'll be looking into life cycle. We'll be looking into specifically the stores, all the other things, deeper advanced Svelte in the next sessions. So far, any questions that you guys want to ask, or you guys are not familiar with what the concept is? So if there's no questions, I think I will hand it over to Benjamin.
All right, yeah. So I think I'll give some time for everyone to, ask your questions if you have to. And just to clarify for everybody, this session is recorded. And very soon after this session, if you need to refer to the, like Rain's amazing teaching again, we'll be uploading it to our STC YouTube. And I think what we can do is we will make an announcement on like our IG stories once it is uploaded already. So yeah, this session is being recorded, and that will go for our second session as well. So if you do have like miss out some things and you feel like it's a bit hard to ask all the questions you have now, you can refer to the session later on once it's being uploaded. But yeah, I think it's a perfect opportunity. If you do have any questions now, what better time to ask than when Rain is here right now? So I think I give like a minute or two for anybody to ask their questions. And if not, we can slowly wrap up our session 1 of Svelte. All right, all cool for Ethan. The YouTube channel.
You guys can you guys can ask me any other questions as well. So for example, you're not sure where to kickstart on your career, or like should I go for web development, or should I go for mobile app development, all these kind of questions as well.
I think to make it easier, right, what I can do is share screen. If you guys want to ask questions, anonymously, I think that could be easier. Hold up, let me Rain, I share screen now. Can I?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Okay, so basically, if you guys do have any questions, like general questions to ask Rain regarding like what he said, anything regarding tech or employability and like life after uni, any questions or you think you need tips from Rain, because Rain is someone that's very experienced and I mean, as you can tell, very knowledgeable. Feel free to ask the questions in the slider here. So you can scan the QR code and ask your questions straight away. I will copy the event link and send it in the chat as well if you guys feel like you want to use your laptop to ask. You can click on this link and ask away as well. I think we won't do this for too long because we don't want to like take away all the time. But yeah, thank you all for sticking around for so long. I think pretty much almost everyone stayed till the end. But yeah, all right, we already have one question. So what is your advice for programming languages to learn? I feel like a lot of people want to know, and a lot of people constantly ask this kind of question, especially those who are new.
Yeah. For this, right, it actually, I won't say it depends, because that's like a most general answer. But I would say if you're not sure where to get started, go for Python, JavaScript. These two are like the most popular languages to pick up right now. So when it comes to programming languages, right, it doesn't matter where you get started because all of them are the same. Although they are like functional programming, they are like OOP, they are like different kind of paradigm, I recall, but it doesn't matter. Just need to get started with one of the most popular one. And from there, when you move on to another language, right, it won't take you more than a month. So my advice is get started with Python or JavaScript.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
All
So
right, yeah, our next question.
Can we do backend using Svelte? No, Svelte is purely front end. So it is the same as you cannot use HTML, CSS for backend code. You cannot use Svelte for backend. Backend is if you're looking for backend in JavaScript, you can look into Nest, JS, Express, Django, all these things. Django is not JavaScript. Django is Python. Yeah. What do you think are essentials to learn in web dev? When it comes to web dev, right, I think that fundamentals are very important. You have to really deep down into JavaScript, and you have to know as very deeply what DOM actually is, because that's like a fundamental for all of the front-end frameworks. So if you want to learn deep, right, you have to learn CSS, like deep CSS, and also the DOM inside out.
I think
can I go with
one question I think that could be a good follow-up, just in case they want to learn, which resources do you think is very good to learn all these essentials in web development?
Well, I would say the Web3 schools are pretty good because it's not a joke, it's not true. It's really good because you get to see everything inside. And inside out means like you know all the attributes, you know exactly which tag do what, you know exactly which events to handle. So if you're looking for that, first place I would recommend you to go is to look at what's out there, right? You have to know what's out there before you can go deep into it. So know what's out there is inside the Web3 schools. We have a list of events and HTML tag inside.
I think this is a very interesting question. What sort of jobs can I do with a CS degree that don't involve web or mobile development?
Well, there are quite a lot actually. Not just web or web. I suppose when you say web, it means front end like HTML, CSS. There are quite a lot of others like backend, right? Backend is a whole big things that never covered inside, in your uni degree. So there are quite a lot of other places like, researching in algorithms, machine learning, data managing, working with databases, working with backend, working with API, working with AWS, cloud infrastructures, servers, Linux, and all these things, you can do it. So when it comes to CS, it's not just web or mobile. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the benefit of having a CS degree is you've probably dabbled in a lot of the basics of different things already. So it's unfortunately, I think, not enough to really prepare you for the different areas and different fields of work, but it gives you a foundation for you to learn stuff on your own. Yeah, the sad truth I found out over a time here is what you learn in uni is really not enough to prepare you for the real world.
Yeah, I really appreciated SDC because all these technologies you learn here, right? You won't be able to learn it in uni. And all these are like the essential skills in the workspace. So that's kind of a thing. So what's Svelte, right? Well, Svelte is because it's simpler. One of the top reasons is because the developer experience, the way you write is very intuitive, but you may compare it with React, right? I think this also answers the second questions. You might be comparing it with React, with Vue.js. So whether Svelte is enough, for you to go for a super big scale, right? I wouldn't say I wouldn't say yes actually, but I would say for you to pick up front-end framework, Svelte is a good start because it covered all of the essentials topic, all the essential philosophy before you migrate it into React. So if you're going this route, right, Svelte to React, you'll find the difficulty is flatter. It's like the learning curve is like flat. But if you're going to directly to React, right, you can see the learning curve is insanely steep. So I would recommend you to go learn Svelte first, then only move it to React. Svelte, I would say for you to do for middle size and small size app is good enough. But big app, try not to because library support not yet. Yeah. But it's getting there, probably 1 or 2 years. Yeah. So I think this answered the first and second questions. Most used programming language then JavaScript, Python, TypeScript. These two are the most used. Steps to become a software engineer. When it comes to software engineer, right, it's not really about programming itself. Software engineer involve like developing the apps. So it's actually more on how do you manage your projects than writing the code. Writing the code is when it comes to workspaces, you can see quite a lot of other geniuses out there that can produce an app within a day or two, right? But the hard part here is not really writing the code, but rather managing the projects and dealing with clients. So those are the hard part. So steps to become software engineer. Of course, your fundamentals on programming has to be good. You have to pick up few frameworks. Then you have to learn how to do requirement engineering, project management, how to learn like software development lifecycle, agile, waterfall, all these things.
And
can I use JavaScript?
No, I have a follow-up question, right, to hopefully help people understand. And all these things is, in order to learn all these skills, is pretty much learn on the job, right? I don't think it's very hard to prepare for that when you don't have the experience, especially when it comes to project management.
Yep.
So yeah, you'll get there one day.
Yeah, you can use JavaScript inside Svelte as how you can write inside your script tag. Whatever that you can write in script tag, you can write in Svelte.
All right. Is it hard to get a job after degree if I don't have many skills? I'm assuming maybe like to contextualize this question, perhaps if someone just purely has knowledge from their CS degree, is it hard to get a job without the additional knowledge like what we are teaching now?
I wouldn't say no because currently the market demand is quite high. Like lots of people are hiring software engineers, but I can foresee the trend will slowly go down after probably 5 years. Shouldn't be our generation issue. But the thing is that you are competing with lots of other people. From what you can see inside SCC, you have all these are your friends, right? So, and they are like bigger and more genius programmers out there that is competing directly with you. So yeah, I would say if you are trying to get an entry job without skills, yes, it is easy. But if you're trying to climb the ladder and go higher, you have to pick out how to pick up skills. So not really like picking up frameworks, not really picking up languages, but rather how to pick up skills quickly. Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting question as well. I guess some people are quite scared to, move into learning frameworks on their own. So how do you know when you're ready to move into frameworks from vanilla JS?
Okay. Yeah, this is a very good question. So if you can handle, okay, so this is what my path, maybe not suitable for everyone, but my path is I created a simpler version of Svelte where I can compile my own code to code, but then I really know the inside out for frameworks. Then I'm only move from vanilla to a framework like Svelte. I used to be like sticking with vanilla for a very long time because I think like why do I even need to use a framework, right? But the thing is like if you're looking for productivity, if you're looking to work for more efficient, framework is the way to go. Yeah, but before that, fundamental has to be strong.
All right. See, that answers your question. All right. Can Svelte take touch inputs like on mobile phone rather than using mouse and keyboard?
Yeah, sure. It's whatever that you can do in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can do in Svelte.
Okay, so I think we'll take all these questions and then we'll end from there. So we'll end at this one. So what technologies do you use in your work?
Primarily, I use Flutter. I use Django. I use Svelte, React Native. So all these are quite of modern technologies.
Yeah, and these are things we will slowly cover in STC, like I mentioned in the very beginning. We
Yeah.
probably be doing Flutter next, and all these modern frameworks and modern technologies is something we want to try to share if we can. Right?
Yeah.
Worth learning jQuery.
jQuery will actually, unless you are looking for the library support, but most of the time nowadays React is good enough. But if you are looking for maintaining legacy website, then you can still go for jQuery. But I think nowadays nobody uses jQuery anymore, because the original intent problem that jQuery is trying to solve is the JavaScript before vanilla JavaScript, right? It's very hard to change the DOM object. So which is why they invented, so they created jQuery. It's for us to easily update the DOM, right? For example, update the hash fund tag, update all these things. But after the introduction of vanilla JavaScript, I think it's almost like 1,000 or 1,000,000 times faster than the jQuery. So instead of learning jQuery, I will advise you to spend your time in learning deeply what vanilla JavaScript is.
All right. Clear answer there. All right. Looking for more workshops like this. Thank you so much for supporting.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming. And I think we can just stop at this tree. Oh, interesting. You should ask the first question.
42 KL. So I am a cadet of 42 KL. So yeah, I think Ethan's not here. We are both the first, not really the first, the second batch of 42 KL. So if you're looking for joining 42 KL, right, go ask 42 KL. They are really friendly and stuff. But if you're like a normal students, right, I would strongly advise you, like this is a real advice, go join their piscine for 1 month. Actually, it's 28 days. I will guarantee you, like after these 28 days, right, it's really intensive, really impressive. You have to spend all your day and night there. But after these 28 days, your mindset on programming will totally change. And the way that you write your code will be like 1 or 2 level ups. Yeah. So if you have time for like a 1 month or 28 days, go join 42 KL piscine.
All right. And I think this is a very, very interesting question. And I think there's some concerns for a lot of people getting into web development now. So is web dev still a good career option, considering there are many tools like low-code tools or no-code tools like Wix, Shopify, GoDaddy, which doesn't require a lot of coding knowledge?
Well, the fact that this platform exists, right, that means the market is mature enough. So that means there are still places that needs web developers. For example, you're building a custom business applications for internal workflow, for internal stuff, or like, you want to achieve something that all this platform cannot do, then this is where you need the web developers, right? But the fact is, how many people are looking for these people? Most businesses just need like a simple landing page. They don't need like a web developers to do this, right? They can just use WordPress and stuff. So I would say there are still markets. There are definitely still markets. But if you are looking to go for this way, you are competing with the existing platforms and competing with lots of others people that knows this, because the entry barrier is way lower than than mobile developers. So becoming a web developer is very easy, but becoming a mobile app developer is very hard. So if you're looking for value wise, right, you have to go to the hard way instead of the easy way. But if you're really if you really love web development, go ahead by all means. There are still market, no worries.
Yeah, we can move on to the last question. What tech should I focus if I want to deal with machine learning hosted within apps and websites?
What tech should I focus if I want to deal with machine learning hosted within apps and websites? First of all, I wouldn't recommend you to have your machine learning code directly inside your JavaScript code because of the performance issue. There are libraries that overcome this, but it's not yet matured. So if you want to focus in machine learning, I think pretty much nowadays is super mature already. You can look into PyTorch and look into I think what was it called already? TensorFlow, and some of the others. No, these are like the Google technologies. Right? So maybe Marcus can cover up with this.
Okay.
TensorFlow, if you're looking for the answer.
All right, and I think one last one. I think I also can answer. They put on the website, you don't really need any coding experience, but I guess as someone from 42KL, can you confirm or deny?
You mean like can we join for this OKR if we don't have any experience? Well, I have seen people without any programming experience and become a cadet. So yes.
All right.
Yes,
I think we have an answer there, and I think we're gonna wrap up for the answers because it's getting quite late already. So yeah, just want to say thank you everybody for supporting us and for coming for. Remember, this is still the first session of Svelte Workshop 2022. Tomorrow we still have one more session and we'll go more in depth into Svelte as a framework, and we hope you guys are in for the ride because I foresee it, because naturally with the progression of things it's gonna get a bit harder. So it'd be really great if you guys can be here so you can ask questions directly to Rain if you guys don't understand. And yeah, once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rain, for being here again and teaching us and sharing your knowledge. And for everyone else, hopefully you guys had a really, really good time today and enjoyed. And like I said, we will be sharing our recording like once the workshops are over. So yeah, have a good night and hopefully see all of you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, Ethan's here. Hi,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you and
thank you.
ciao.